Nobody is going to tell you this. Not the training sites, not the coaches, not the pros you watch on TV crushing final tables and accepting bracelets with the calm of people who were born for this moment. Nobody is going to pull you aside and say, here's what it actually cost. Here's what happened before the cameras arrived. Here's what winning at the highest level of this game really looks like from the inside. On the nights when nobody is watching, when the money is gone, when the doubt is louder than anything else in the room. They are never going to tell you that. So I will. Because what professionals know about winning, what they have learned through years of suffering that they will never share in an interview or a training video or a tweet, is the only information that can actually change your game from the ground up. And by the end of this video, you are going to know everything they know. Everything they paid for in ways that never show up on a results screen. Here's what the public sees. Fedor Holz at 23 years old, ranked #1 in the world, $47 million in lifetime tournament earnings, winning the 111,111 one drop for nearly $5 million with the composure of someone who had been doing this for decades. Here's what the public does not see. Fedor at 19, gambling with money he borrowed from his father's household account, a decision that could have destroyed his family. The years before the cameras arrived, when he was grinding micro stakes in Vienna with no certainty about whether any of this would ever work. The countless mornings after devastating losses, when quitting would have been the rational choice. The isolation of choosing poker over everything else that a young man his age was supposed to be choosing. Nobody shows you that part. They show you the bracelet and the smile, and you try to build something from an incomplete picture. Fedor Holz quit school and moved to Vienna to devote his life to poker, long before he had any guarantee that the sacrifice would pay off. Chris Moneymaker, an accountant from Tennessee, won his seat to the 2003 WSOP Main Event through an $86 satellite and walked out with $2.5 million. But before that moment, there were years of playing poker in rooms where nobody would ever see him, building a game in the dark, with no audience and no validation. Phil Ivey honed his skills in Atlantic City, playing long hours in casinos before he was anyone at all. The people who win at the highest level of this game were all invisible first. They all paid a price that was never announced, and the price is the secret. Here is the first thing professionals know that they will never tell you. The version of success you see in public is the final frame of a movie that started years before you arrived. You are watching the conclusion and building your expectations around it. You are comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. And that comparison is costing you more than any technical leak. Kobe Bryant used to arrive at the gym at 4 a.m., not once, every single day for years. His teammates would arrive at the normal time and find him already soaked in sweat, already deep into a workout that most players would consider sufficient for the entire day. They saw the championships, they did not see the 4 a.m. arrivals. Phil Ivey has said publicly that he spent entire years doing nothing but playing and studying poker. Not months, years. The competitive edge he built during that invisible period is what showed up when the cameras finally arrived. You cannot skip the invisible period. You can only make it shorter by being more deliberate about what you do with it. Dominic Nietzsche, one of the most technically advanced players in the game today, spends several hours every single day in study mode, even after long sessions, plugging hands into solvers to find the objective truth about his decisions. Not sometimes, every day, after sessions that most players would consider enough work on their own. The professionals are not just more talented, they are more obsessive about the details that nobody sees and nobody praises. They have developed what researchers call a cult-like discipline in their daily routines. And that discipline is maintained not by motivation, which is temporary, but by identity, which is permanent. They have decided that this is who they are, and that decision eliminates the question of whether to do the work today. Here is the question you need to ask yourself right now. Are you building your game in public or in private? Are you doing the work that people can see, or the work that produces results years from now when nobody remembers the effort? The professionals have already answered that question, and their answer is the same answer that champions in every domain have always given. There is a concept in human psychology called the iceberg illusion. What you see above the surface is the success, the result, the moment of winning. What exists below the surface and is never visible is everything that made the visible part possible. The study sessions at midnight, the sessions where nothing went right and you stayed anyway, the relationships you did not pursue because you were too deep in a hand history review, the social events you skipped because the next day was a tournament and you needed to be sharp. The self-doubt that arrived at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday after a 3-day downswing, and the decision you made to show up anyway. Nobody tells you about the below-the-surface part. And nobody tells you that the below-the-surface part is not just the cost of winning. It is the mechanism of winning. The suffering is not what you endure to reach the skill. The suffering is how the skill is built. This is true in poker, and it is true in everything else that matters. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. He used that rejection as fuel for a discipline that his teammates could never match. Kobe Bryant trained through injuries that would have ended most careers, because the alternative, the person he would become without that work, was more painful to him than the physical suffering. These are not motivational stories. They are engineering reports. They are descriptions of the mechanism by which greatness is built. Discomfort accepted and sustained over time produces capability that comfort never will. The hard truth about professional poker that nobody wants to say directly is that the game demands exhaustion, social sacrifice, and patience with bad beats at a level that most players underestimate catastrophically before they commit. The pros who made it did not find poker easy. They found it worth it. And that distinction is everything. Easy does not build skill. Worth it does. The question is not whether the path to becoming the player you want to be is going to be hard. It is going to be hard. The question is whether you have decided it is worth it. Because once that decision is made, the hard things become investment rather than suffering. And investment compounds. Suffering just hurts. Now I want to talk about something that professionals know and never say because saying it would make them look bad. It is about envy, about the invisible poison that destroys more poker careers than any technical mistake ever could. Every player at every stake has watched another player run better than them for an extended period and felt something move in their chest. It was not admiration. It was something darker. Something that made them play differently, take more risks to catch up, make decisions driven not by the hand in front of them, but by the gap between where they are and where someone else appears to be. Envy disguised as ambition is one of the most expensive states a poker player can be in. Because envy makes you play their game instead of your own. The professionals have learned, through expensive and painful experience, that the only relevant metric is improvement over their own previous best, not comparison with what someone else is doing, not comparison with where they thought they would be by now, their own personal baseline versus their current performance. This is not a mindset tip, it is a competitive strategy. When you are comparing yourself to others, you are playing on their terms. When you are comparing yourself to yourself, you are playing on terrain where you have complete information and complete control. Here's the practical application. Every time you feel the pull of comparison, every time you see another player's results and feel something other than neutral curiosity, your decision quality in the next 30 minutes will drop measurably. This has been documented in behavioral research on competitive environments. Comparative social evaluation activates the same threat response in the brain as physical danger, and the brain in threat mode does not play its best poker. It plays its most reactive poker, which is the opposite of what the moment requires. The professionals kill the comparison before it kills their game, not through positive thinking, through ruthless redirection. The moment the comparison thought arises, they redirect to one question: what is the highest quality decision available to me right now? That question has no room for what someone else is doing. It has room only for what the hand requires. I need to stop here, because what comes next is the most advanced section of this video, and I want to make sure you have access to the complete system it is part of. Everything we have covered so far, and everything that follows, the iceberg illusion, the mechanism of suffering, the comparative envy trap, these are components of a complete performance architecture that the Collection 2 ebooks lay out in full practical detail. 10 ebooks and 5 premium bonus ebooks, $29.89. Scan the Collection 2 QR code on screen right now. The link is also in the pinned comment. And if you want to take what you are learning directly to a real table tonight, join PhenomPoker, a player-owned platform backed by Victor Blom, Brian Rast, and Daniel Cates. Make your first deposit and receive a 200% welcome bonus up to 4,000 USDT automatically. Then scan the PhenomPoker QR code on screen or use the link in the pinned comment. Make your first deposit. Email me at junior.playcast@outlook.com with your deposit screenshot, and I send you Collection 1, 10 complete ebooks, completely free, immediately. Now let us go deeper, because what comes next is the thing professionals guard most carefully: concentration. True, sustained, unbroken attention on the task in front of you for hours at a time. This is the rarest skill in poker and the most valuable. And professionals will never tell you how much of their edge comes specifically from this, because if they did, you would spend your sessions trying to develop it instead of trying to learn more strategy. And a player who has mastered concentration is more dangerous than a player who has mastered strategy but cannot sustain attention under pressure. Here's what concentration actually means at a poker table. It does not mean staring at your opponents without blinking. It does not mean thinking about poker every second of every hand. It means that when a hand that matters arrives, your full cognitive capacity is available for it. Nothing is leaking into other concerns. Not the bad beat from 3 hands ago. Not the money you are up or down. Not what someone at the table said to you. Not whether the player across from you is getting luckier than you. Full capacity available for the decision that is actually in front of you. Research from the University of Illinois on sustained attention found that the human brain begins losing decision quality after approximately 20 minutes of continuous focused effort without any form of reset. 20 minutes. A tournament day runs 8 to 10 hours. The math of that gap is where most players lose the most money. Not in the first level when they are fresh. Not in the last level when they know they are tired. In the middle hours when they are not fresh enough to be sharp, but not tired enough to know they are impaired. This is the zone where attention quietly deteriorates and nobody notices until the stack is smaller. The reset protocol that professionals use is devastatingly simple. Between every significant hand, they perform a complete mental reset. They let the result of the previous hand go completely before the next hand begins. Not eventually, immediately. The pot is pushed. They reset. The next hand is treated as if it is the first hand of the session. This sounds obvious. It is almost universally not practiced. And the gap between knowing it and doing it is where the professional edge lives. The greatest and most apparent secret to succeeding in poker is loving the grind. Those who are truly passionate about the ins and outs of the game rise to the top, not because they are more talented, but because they sustain attention and effort at a level that those who merely want the results cannot match. Now the truth that will make some people in this video uncomfortable. Not every player who grinds hard is going to reach the top of this game. Hard work is necessary. It is not sufficient. What determines whether hard work translates into elite results is the quality of the feedback loop that the work runs through. You can put in 10,000 hours of deliberate practice on the wrong things and become very efficient at losing. You can put in 500 hours of perfectly calibrated practice on the right things and develop an edge that players with 10 times your experience cannot match. The professionals who made it are not just harder workers. They are better learners. They have built feedback systems that tell them the truth about their performance with minimum delay and maximum accuracy. They review sessions without ego. They identify leaks without defensiveness. They update their models based on evidence rather than on what they want to believe. And they do this consistently, day after day, long after the motivation to improve has been replaced by the discipline of the process. Here is a truth about human nature that applies to every high-performance domain, including poker. The brain defaults to protecting existing beliefs rather than updating them. When you receive information that contradicts what you already believe about your game, the automatic response is rationalization, not recalibration. You find reasons why the information is wrong, rather than reasons why your belief needs to update. This is not weakness. It is how human cognition is structured. The professionals have learned to fight this tendency deliberately and systematically. They have learned to treat their own beliefs about their game with the same skepticism they apply to their opponent's bet sizing. The player who can look at their own game with completely honest eyes, who can see the leaks that the ego wants to hide, who can update their model of themselves based on what the evidence actually shows rather than what they wish it showed, that player is building something that compound interest works on. Every honest session review deposits into a growing account of real self-knowledge, and real self-knowledge is the foundation on which everything else in this game is built. This is the part of the video that nobody else is going to make. This is the part about what winning actually costs outside the game, about the life that gets built around poker when you are serious about it, and about whether you are honest with yourself about what you are willing to pay. Making money playing poker happens at odd hours and for long hours, which takes away time spent with loved ones and time spent meeting new people. There is still social stigma. Most parents are horrified when their child announces they are pursuing poker seriously. The exhaustion of grinding every day is real and constant. Nobody in the highlight reel tells you this. The friendships you put on hold, the relationships that could not survive the schedule, and the variance and the emotional unpredictability of life built around cards. The moments you were physically present, but mentally somewhere in a hand history. The conversations you had while part of your mind was still at the table. The people who stopped inviting you to things because your answer was always some version of, "Not tonight, I have a session." This is not a complaint, it is accounting. Every serious player has paid some version of this price, and the professionals who made it are the ones who paid it consciously rather than accidentally. They chose what they were giving up rather than drifting into giving it up without noticing. That distinction matters enormously. Conscious sacrifice strengthens commitment. Accidental sacrifice generates resentment. And resentment at the table, resentment at the cost of the journey, is one of the most reliable predictors of a player who is about to quit or blow up. The question is not whether the sacrifice is worth it. Only you can answer that. The question is whether you are making it deliberately, with full awareness of what you are choosing, or whether you are letting it happen to you, and then wondering why the motivation comes and goes. Here's where everything we have discussed converges into a single truth, and I want this to land with the weight it deserves. Professionals do not win because they got lucky. They do not win because they are naturally gifted in ways that other people are not. They win because they made a series of decisions, most of them invisible, most of them made in rooms where nobody was watching, most of them made at moments when quitting would have been understandable, that built a version of themselves that the game eventually had no choice but to reward. Fedor Holz did not become a $47 million earner because he is German, or because he is young, or because the cards ran his way. He became that because at 19, he made a decision that cost him school, cost him stability, cost him the conventional path, and he made it with full awareness of what he was choosing. Chris Moneymaker did not win the 2003 main event because he got lucky at the final table. He won because he had played enough poker in enough invisible rooms that when the moment arrived, he knew exactly what to do with it. Phil Ivey did not become the best cash game player in the world because he was born with a gift. He became that because he spent years in Atlantic City playing long sessions against strong competition in rooms where nobody would ever see the work. You are not behind. You are in the invisible period, the period where the work happens and the results do not yet reflect it. Every professional who ever won anything meaningful at this game lived through this period. Some of them lived through it for years. What separated the ones who came out the other side from the ones who quit in the middle is not talent or luck or timing. It is the decision to keep showing up. The complete system for how to show up correctly, how to structure the work, how to build the feedback loops, how to manage the sacrifice, how to sustain the attention and calibrate the intuition and protect the mental game through the downswings is inside Collection 2. 10 ebooks and 5 premium bonus ebooks, $29.89. Everything you need to make the invisible period shorter and the results period longer. Scan the QR code on screen right now. And when you are ready to sit down at a real table and put everything to the test, PhenomPoker is where you go. Player-owned platform, backed by the best in the game, 200% welcome bonus up to 4,000 USDT on your first deposit. Make that deposit, email me at junior.plakas@outlook.com with your screenshot, and Collection 1 comes to your inbox, free, immediately, no catch. The QR code is on screen. Subscribe to this channel right now if this video gave you something real. Every week we go deeper into the truths that the poker world keeps to itself. The neuroscience, the psychology, the philosophy, and the human cost of building a game that actually wins. Not to entertain you, to give you the complete picture that nobody else is painting. Share this video with one player who needs to hear it. Not for the views, because you know someone who is working hard and not seeing the results yet, and is starting to wonder if it is worth it. This video is the answer to that question. The professionals know something about winning that they will never tell you. What you do with it is the only thing that has ever mattered.